The asteroid known as Black Spire loomed like a jagged tooth against the endless blackness of space. It was cold, desolate, and home to one of the most feared prisons in the galaxy, Black Spire Penitentiary. The facility housed criminals from across the stars, aliens with glowing eyes, creatures with too many limbs, and humans who had broken laws so severe they were exiled to this rock at the edge of nowhere. Among the new arrivals was Jason Cole, a man whose presence seemed to draw stares from both guards and inmates alike. Jason didn't look particularly intimidating. He was tall but lean, with short dark hair and a face marked by years of hardship rather than brute strength. His clothes were tattered, and his hands bore scars that hinted at a violent past. What set him apart wasn't his appearance, it was his reputation. Before he even stepped foot inside the prison, whispers about him had already spread. Earthborn, some muttered. Others called him a deathworlder, referring to the brutal planet humanity called home. Earth was infamous for its harsh environments, deadly wildlife, and people who survived by sheer willpower. If Jason was anything like the stories said, no one wanted to cross him. Two heavily armored guards escorted Jason through the airlock and into the main hall. The corridor was dimly lit, with metallic walls that hummed faintly from the energy coursing through the station. Alien faces peered out from cells, their expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility. Some spat insults in guttural languages Jason couldn't understand, while others simply watched in silence. He kept his gaze forward, ignoring them all. Years of living on Earth had taught him one thing: showing fear was a death sentence. At the end of the hallway, they reached a large metal door marked Block Delta 7. The warden, an insectoid alien named Krylthak, awaited them. Its elongated body shimmered under the artificial lights, and its multifaceted eyes scanned Jason with obvious disdain. "You're the human," it said, its voice sharp and mechanical, translated through a device embedded in its throat. "Your file says you've caused trouble wherever you go." Jason shrugged. "I'm just here to serve my time." Krylthak clicked its mandibles, clearly unimpressed. "Delta 7 is full of predators. Be careful, they might see you as prey." With that ominous warning, the warden signaled for the guards to take Jason inside. The block was unlike anything Jason had ever seen. Rows of cells lined each side of the room, occupied by beings of every shape and size. A hulking reptilian creature roared as he passed, while a gangly alien with long arms hissed menacingly. Despite the chaos, Jason remained calm. He'd faced worse back on Earth. When the guards finally stopped in front of an empty cell, he stepped inside without protest. The door slammed shut behind him, locking with a heavy clang. As Jason sat down on the narrow cot, he noticed someone watching him from the cell across the aisle. It was another inmate, a bulky, insectoid alien with glowing green markings along its exoskeleton. The alien's antennae twitched as it studied him, its expression unreadable. For a moment, their eyes met, and Jason felt a chill run down his spine. He didn't know it yet, but this alien would soon become a problem, one he'd have to deal with sooner than expected. For now, though, Jason leaned back against the cold wall and closed his eyes. He'd learned long ago how to conserve energy when danger lurked nearby. Black Spire might be a nightmare for most, but for someone like Jason, it was just another challenge to survive. The next morning, the routine of Black Spire Penitentiary began as it always did. The metallic clang of cell doors echoed through Block Delta 7, signaling the start of another day. Jason Cole rose from his cot and stretched, his movements slow but deliberate. He didn't rush. Rushing was a mistake he'd learned to avoid long ago. As the other inmates shuffled out of their cells, some casting wary glances in his direction, Jason followed the flow of bodies toward the mess hall. The mess hall was a large open space filled with long metal tables bolted to the floor. Steam rose from trays of unappetizing food, grayish slabs of protein substitute and lumps of nutrient paste that smelled faintly of sulfur. Jason took his tray without complaint and found a spot at the far end of the room, away from the clusters of chattering aliens. He ate quietly, focusing on the task at hand, staying alive. But even as he kept his head down, he could feel eyes on him. It wasn't long before trouble found him. A shadow loomed over Jason's table, blocking the dim light from the overhead fixtures. He glanced up to see the insectoid alien from across the aisle standing there, its massive frame towering over him. Its green markings pulsed faintly, as if reacting to its mood. Jason recognized it immediately. It was Varnock, one of the more aggressive inmates in the block. Word had already spread about the deathworlder, and Varnock clearly wanted to make a statement. Earthborn, Varnock sneered, his voice deep and guttural, filtered through a translator device strapped to his chest. I've heard about your kind. You think you're tough because you come from a rock full of monsters. His mandibles clicked sharply as he leaned closer. But this isn't your jungle. Here, you're nothing. Jason set his fork down slowly and looked up at Varnock. His expression was calm, almost bored. If you've got something to say it. Otherwise, let me eat. Varnock's antennae twitched angrily. You don't belong here, soft skin. This is a place for real fighters, not cowards who hide behind their reputation. He paused, then added with a sneer, or maybe Earth isn't as dangerous as everyone says. Maybe you're just lucky. The surrounding inmates fell silent, watching the confrontation unfold. Some seemed eager for a fight, while others appeared cautious, unsure of what Jason might do. Jason didn't move. He simply stared at Varnock, his dark eyes unreadable. After a moment, he said, "Luck has nothing to do with it." Varnock bristled at the response. "Is that so? Then prove it. Stand up and face me like a warrior." Jason didn't rise. Instead, he picked up his fork and resumed eating, completely ignoring Varnock. The act was deliberate, calculated. He knew better than to take the bait. Fighting now would only draw attention, and possibly retaliation, from both the guards and other inmates. Survival meant picking battles wisely, and this wasn't one worth fighting. For a moment, Varnock stood frozen, his glowing markings flickering erratically. No one had ever dismissed him like this before. Humiliated, he slammed a clawed hand onto the table, causing Jason's tray to rattle. "You'll regret this, Earthborn," he growled. "Mark my words." Without waiting for a reply, Varnock turned and stalked away, his heavy footsteps echoing through the mess hall. The tension in the room eased slightly, though whispers quickly erupted among the inmates. They were curious now, wondering why Jason hadn't reacted. Was he brave? Stupid? Or was there something else beneath that calm exterior? Jason ignored the murmurs and continued eating. He knew Varnock wouldn't forget this moment. Aliens like Varnock thrived on dominance, and being dismissed was an insult he wouldn't tolerate for long. But Jason wasn't worried. He'd faced bigger threats than an angry insectoid with a chip on its shoulder. For now, all that mattered was finishing his meal and staying alert. Trouble would come soon enough, but when it did, he'd be ready. Word of Jason Cole's encounter with Varnock spread quickly through Block Delta 7. By the time the inmates returned to their cells after breakfast, nearly everyone had heard about how the human had dismissed the towering insectoid without so much as a flinch. Some were impressed by Jason's calm demeanor, while others dismissed it as arrogance or stupidity. Either way, his name was on everyone's lips. In the days that followed, Jason kept to himself, sticking to a routine that involved eating, sleeping, and staying out of trouble. He avoided drawing attention, but didn't shy away from making eye contact when necessary. His quiet confidence seemed to unsettle those who watched him too closely. Even the guards began treating him differently, exchanging curious glances whenever they passed his cell during patrols. Something about Jason felt off. Not dangerous, exactly, but unpredictable. Varnock, however, couldn't let it go. The rejection burned in his chest like acid, gnawing at his pride every time he saw Jason sitting alone or walking calmly down the corridor. To Varnock, It wasn't just an insult, it was a challenge. Insects like him thrived on hierarchy and dominance, and being ignored by a soft-skinned human was unacceptable. He started talking to other inmates, rallying support for what he called teaching the Earthborn a lesson. Meanwhile, Jason remained oblivious, or at least pretended to be. He spent most of his free time observing the prison dynamics. He noticed which aliens stuck together, who avoided conflict, and who seemed to crave it. He memorized patrol schedules and escape routes, always thinking 2 steps ahead. Earth had taught him survival wasn't just about strength. It was about understanding your environment and adapting to it. And right now, his environment included a very angry Varnock. It wasn't long before Varnock decided to act. One afternoon, during recreation hour in the exercise yard, he cornered Jason near the weightlifting area. The yard was crowded with inmates, some lifting makeshift weights, others sparring or simply lounging. When Varnock approached, the chatter died down and heads turned. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Earthborn, Varnock growled, stepping into Jason's personal space. His glowing markings pulsed angrily, casting eerie shadows on the walls. You think you're better than me? That you can ignore me and walk away like I'm nothing? Jason stopped moving and looked up at Varnock. He didn't seem surprised or afraid, just annoyed, as if this interruption was inconvenient. I don't think anything about you, he said evenly. And I'm not trying to prove anything. Leave me alone. Varnock's mandibles snapped shut with an audible click. You'll regret saying that. Before anyone could react, he shoved Jason hard against the wall. The impact echoed through the yard, silencing even the rowdiest inmates. For a moment, all eyes were on Jason, waiting to see how he'd respond. Instead of lashing out, Jason stayed still, his expression unreadable. He glanced at the hand pinning him to the wall, then back at Varnock. Last chance, he said quietly. Let go. Varnock laughed, a sharp, grating sound. Or what? What are you going to do, soft skin? What happened next was over in seconds. Jason twisted his body slightly, grabbing Varnock's arm with both hands. With a quick, practiced motion, he yanked downward and sideways, dislocating Varnock's shoulder with a sickening pop. The alien roared in pain, stumbling backward as Jason stepped away from the wall. The entire yard erupted into chaos, some inmates cheering, others shouting warnings, and a few scrambling to get out of the way. Varnock clutched his injured arm, his glowing markings flickering wildly, his face contorted with rage and disbelief. You'll pay for this. He snarled, but there was no mistaking the fear in his voice. Jason didn't respond. He simply straightened his shirt and walked away, leaving Varnock humiliated and surrounded by stunned onlookers. From that moment on, no one doubted the rumors about the deathworlder. Whatever else they thought of him, one thing was clear. Crossing Jason Cole was a mistake nobody wanted to repeat. The aftermath of the confrontation in the exercise yard rippled through Block Delta 7 like a shockwave. Varnock retreated to his cell, cradling his dislocated arm and seething with humiliation. His reputation, once unshakable, now lay in tatters. The other inmates whispered among themselves, their tones ranging from awe to amusement. No one had expected the quiet human to react so decisively or so violently. For days, Varnock avoided eye contact with anyone, especially Jason Cole. Jason, on the other hand, returned to his usual routine as if nothing had happened. He ate his meals alone, exercised in the yard without fanfare, and kept to himself during free time. But his actions had changed how others saw him. The guards treated him with cautious respect, giving him more space than before. Even some of the tougher inmates nodded at him in acknowledgement when they passed in the corridors. It was clear that Jason's calm demeanor masked something dangerous, something primal. One person who took notice was Olivia Hayes, a medic assigned to Blackspire Penitentiary. She was a young woman with short brown hair and sharp green eyes, known for her steady hands and kind heart. Unlike many of the staff, Olivia didn't see the inmates purely as criminals. She saw people shaped by their circumstances. When she heard about what happened in the yard, she became curious about Jason. What kind of man could face down someone like Varnock and walk away unscathed? Her opportunity came a few days later when Jason appeared in the medical bay. A minor cut on his forearm, from a stray piece of shrapnel during maintenance work, needed cleaning and bandaging. Olivia greeted him warmly as he sat down on the examination table. "You're Jason Cole, right?" she asked, her tone casual but probing. "That's me," Jason replied, watching her carefully as she cleaned the wound. He wasn't hostile, but there was a guarded quality to his voice. "I've been hearing things about you," Olivia said, glancing up briefly. "People say you're not someone to mess with." Jason shrugged. "I don't go looking for trouble, but I don't run from it either." Olivia smiled faintly, sensing the truth behind his words. "Fair enough. Still, it takes guts to stand up to someone like Varnock. You must have learned it somewhere." "Earth," Jason said simply. "It's not a forgiving place." Olivia paused, studying him. "I can imagine. From what I've read, Earth sounds brutal. Predators, harsh weather, limited resources. Surviving there would make anyone tough." "It's not just about being tough," Jason corrected her. "It's about knowing when to fight and when to hold back. Out there, wasted energy gets you killed." Olivia nodded thoughtfully. There was wisdom in his words, born from experience rather than arrogance. She finished bandaging his arm and handed him a small tube of ointment. "Here, use this twice a day to keep the wound from getting infected." "Thanks," Jason said, slipping the tube into his pocket. He hesitated for a moment, then added, "I appreciate it." As Jason left the medical bay, Olivia watched him go, her mind racing. She'd met plenty of inmates during her time at Blackspire, but none quite like Jason. There was something about him, a quiet strength mixed with an almost detached practicality, that intrigued her. She decided to keep an eye on him, partly out of professional interest and partly because she felt he might need an ally in this unforgiving place. Back in Block Delta 7, rumors continued to swirl. Some inmates began calling Jason the Survivor, a nickname that stuck as quickly as the stories of his encounter with Varnock. Others still viewed him with suspicion, unsure whether his calmness was a sign of control or unpredictability. But one thing was certain, no one dared to test him again. Not yet, anyway. Varnock, meanwhile, grew increasingly frustrated. His injury healed slowly, and his pride even slower. He couldn't shake the memory of Jason's cold gaze, or the ease with which he'd been defeated. Every time their paths crossed, Varnock felt a surge of anger and fear. Deep down, he knew he couldn't let this stand. But how could he retaliate against someone who seemed untouchable? Jason's growing reputation didn't go unnoticed by the prison administration. Warden Krillfak, ever vigilant about maintaining order in Blackspire Penitentiary, ordered increased surveillance on him. Hidden cameras were adjusted to focus more closely on Jason's movements, and guards were instructed to monitor his interactions with other inmates. The warden wanted answers. Was Jason Cole truly as dangerous as the rumors suggested, or was he simply lucky? The footage revealed glimpses of Jason's past through fragmented flashbacks triggered by stress or tension. These moments played out like ghostly echoes in the minds of those watching the recordings. Viewers saw flashes of a young Jason running barefoot through dense forests, dodging massive predators with razor-sharp claws. They witnessed him scavenging for food in harsh wastelands, fighting off rival gangs armed with crude weapons. And they saw him standing over fallen enemies, his face streaked with dirt and blood, but eerily calm. These snippets painted a picture of a man shaped by survival itself. Earth had forged him into something rare, a predator who thought like a strategist. His actions weren't driven by rage or cruelty, but by necessity. Every move he made seemed calculated, every decision aimed at staying alive. Even the guards, hardened by years of dealing with violent criminals, couldn't help but feel a grudging respect for him. Olivia Hayes also noticed the changes in how people treated Jason. During her rounds in the medical bay, she overheard conversations among the staff. Some praised his restraint, while others warned of the danger he posed. She decided to reach out to him again, hoping to understand him better. One evening, after the daily head count, she approached him in the common area where inmates gathered before lockdown. She said softly, sitting down across from him at an empty table. Jason glanced up from the book he was reading, an old manual on engineering, and gave her a nod. "Something wrong?" he asked, closing the book. "No, nothing's wrong," Olivia replied. "I just wanted to check in. How are you holding up?" Jason shrugged. "Same as always, staying out of trouble." Olivia smiled faintly. "That's not what I've been hearing. Word is, Varnock's still upset about what happened in the yard." "He'll get over it," Jason said dismissively. "He picked the fight. Not my fault he lost." "Still, you should be careful," Olivia cautioned. "Varnock's got friends who might not take kindly to what you did." "I can handle myself," Jason said, his tone firm but not aggressive. "Besides, if they come at me, they'll regret it." Olivia hesitated, then leaned closer. "Look, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I've seen enough fights in here to know how quickly things can spiral out of control. If you need help, or even just someone to talk to, I'm here." For the first time since she'd met him, Jason's expression softened slightly. "Thanks," he said quietly. "I'll keep that in mind." Their conversation ended when the guards announced it was time to return to the cells. As Jason walked away, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to him than met the eye. He wasn't just tough. He was smart, resourceful, and deeply scared by whatever life had thrown at him. She wondered if anyone else truly understood the weight he carried. Meanwhile, Varnock's frustration boiled over. Unable to confront Jason directly, he began gathering allies, other inmates who shared his hatred for the human. They whispered plans in shadowy corners of the block, plotting their revenge. Varnock knew he couldn't beat Jason alone, but together, they might stand a chance. All they needed was the right moment. Unaware of the storm brewing around him, Jason returned to his cell and settled onto his cot. He stared at the ceiling, his thoughts drifting back to Earth. Memories of endless nights spent under starless skies filled his mind. Back then, survival had been simple. Find shelter, find food, avoid death. Here, in Blackspire, the rules were different, but the goal remained the same: stay alive, no matter what. As the days passed, Jason Cole's interactions with Olivia Hayes became more frequent. She brought him small favors: extra portions of food during meals, a thicker blanket for his cot, or a fresh book to read when he finished the last one. At first, Jason was wary of her kindness. In a place like Blackspire Penitentiary, generosity often came with strings attached. But Olivia never asked for anything in return. Her actions seemed genuine, motivated by curiosity and compassion rather than ulterior motives. Their conversations grew longer too. During these moments, Jason opened up slightly, sharing fragments of his past without revealing too much. He told her about Earth, the towering trees that scraped the sky, the rivers that ran red with iron-rich water, and the predators that hunted in packs under cover of darkness. Olivia listened intently, fascinated not just by his stories, but by the way he spoke about them. There was no bitterness in his voice, only a quiet acceptance of the world he'd come from. "You've seen some things," Olivia said one evening as they sat in the common area before lockdown. "Things most people couldn't handle." "Not really," Jason replied, flipping through the pages of a worn-out engineering manual. "You do what you have to do to survive. That's it." Olivia tilted her head, studying him. "But doesn't it weigh on you? All the fighting, the running. Doesn't it make you wonder if there's more to life?" Jason paused, considering her question. "Sometimes," he admitted after a moment. "But wondering doesn't change anything. You can't fix the past. All you can do is keep moving forward." His words lingered in the air between them. Olivia wanted to press further, to ask what he meant by fixing the past, but she sensed he wouldn't elaborate. Instead, she changed the subject. Be careful, okay? Varnak's still out there. I think he's planning something. Jason nodded. I know. Thanks for the warning. Later that night, as Jason lay on his cot staring at the ceiling, he thought about Olivia's words. Was there more to life than survival? He wasn't sure. For so long, staying alive had been his only goal. It was hard to imagine anything beyond that. Still, her concern touched him in a way he hadn't expected. In a place like Blackspire, kindness was rare and dangerous. Anyone who showed it risked being taken advantage of. Yet Olivia didn't seem afraid. If anything, she seemed determined to help him, even if he didn't fully trust her yet. Unbeknownst to Jason, Varnak's plans were nearing completion. The insectoid alien had recruited several allies, each with their own reasons for hating humans, or simply wanting to assert dominance over someone perceived as weak. Among them was a reptilian creature named Zerk, known for its speed and aggression, and a burly humanoid called Rax, whose brute strength made him a formidable opponent. Together, they formed a loose alliance, united by their desire to take down Jason. We'll catch him off guard, Varnak whispered during one of their secret meetings in a dimly lit corner of the block. In the maintenance tunnels. No guards, no witnesses, just us. Zerk hissed in agreement, while Rax cracked his knuckles eagerly. About time we taught that soft skin a lesson, Rax growled. Varnak's antennae twitched with satisfaction. Finally, he would restore his pride and show everyone in Block Delta 7 that he was still the strongest. But he underestimated one thing, Jason's instincts. Years of surviving on Earth had honed his ability to sense danger, even when it lurked in the shadows. And though he didn't know the specifics of Varnak's plan, he could feel the tension building around him. The next morning, Jason noticed subtle changes in the behavior of the other inmates. Some avoided meeting his gaze, while others exchanged nervous glances when they thought he wasn't looking. Even the guards seemed unusually tense, their weapons drawn as they patrolled the corridors. Something was coming. He could feel it in his gut. Instead of waiting for trouble to find him, Jason decided to prepare. During recreation hour, he lingered near the entrance to the maintenance tunnels, observing the flow of movement. He memorized every twist and turn, every potential hiding spot. If Varnak wanted a fight, Jason would be ready. And this time, he wouldn't hold back. The ambush came late one night, just as Jason had suspected it would. The prison was eerily quiet, the usual hum of machinery and distant chatter replaced by an oppressive silence. Most inmates were locked in their cells, but Jason wasn't asleep. He lay on his cot, eyes open, listening to the faint creaks and groans of the aging structure around him. When the first sound came, a soft scrape of boots against metal, he was already alert. A group of shadows slipped into the corridor outside his cell. Varnak led them, his glowing markings dimmed to avoid drawing attention. Behind him lurked Zerk, Rax, and two other inmates Jason didn't recognize. They moved quietly, their weapons, sharpened pieces of scrap metal and makeshift clubs, clutched tightly in their hands. None of them spoke. They didn't need to. Their goal was clear. Jason sat up slowly, his movements deliberate. He'd been expecting this moment. Instead of waiting for them to act, he stood and stepped toward the bars of his cell, his posture relaxed but ready. The guards assigned to monitor the block were nowhere to be seen. Jason suspected they'd been bribed or distracted. Whatever the case, he was on his own. "Come to finish what you started?" Jason asked, his voice calm and steady. It carried through the empty corridor, making the attackers pause for a split second. Varnak's antennae twitched angrily, but he said nothing. Instead, he gestured for Zerk to unlock the cell door. As soon as the lock clicked open, Jason sprang into action. He didn't wait for them to surround him. Instead, he lunged forward, grabbing the nearest attacker, a wiry alien with too many teeth, and using him as a shield. Zerk hissed and swung wildly with his sharpened blade, but Jason twisted out of the way, letting the weapon sink harmlessly into the other inmate's shoulder. A pained shriek echoed through the corridor as Jason shoved the injured alien into Zerk, sending both crashing to the ground. Rax charged next, roaring loudly as he swung his club. Jason sidestepped the blow and drove his elbow into Rax's ribs, hearing a satisfying crack. The humanoid staggered back, clutching his side, but Jason didn't give him time to recover. With a swift kick, he sent Rax sprawling onto his back. By now, the remaining two attackers had joined the fray. One lunged at Jason with a jagged piece of pipe, but Jason caught his arm mid-swing and twisted it until the weapon clattered to the floor. Before the second could react, Jason delivered a sharp punch to his throat, leaving him gasping for air. Varnock watched all of this unfold, his mandibles clicking furiously. For a moment, he considered retreating, but pride wouldn't let him. With a guttural roar, he rushed forward, claws extended. Jason met him head-on, grabbing Varnock's wrists and using the insectoid's momentum against him. In one fluid motion, he flipped Varnock over his shoulder, slamming him hard onto the metal floor. The impact left Varnock dazed, his glowing markings flickering weakly. It was over almost as quickly as it began. The attackers lay scattered around the corridor, groaning in pain or unconscious altogether. Jason stood amidst them, breathing heavily but otherwise unharmed. His knuckles were scraped, and his shirt bore a few new tears, but he hadn't sustained any serious injuries. He glanced down at Varnock, who glared up at him with pure hatred. "I warned you," Jason said simply. Then he turned and walked away, leaving the mess behind. Moments later, the guards arrived, alerted by the noise. They took in the scene, the battered inmates, the discarded weapons, and Jason standing calmly nearby, and exchanged uneasy looks. No one dared accuse him of starting the fight. After all, self-defense was allowed, even in Blackspire Penitentiary. As the guards hauled the injured attackers to the medical bay, word spread rapidly among the other prisoners. Jason Cole wasn't just tough. He was untouchable. And from that point on, no one questioned why Earth was called a death world, or why its people survived where others failed. The days following the ambush brought a strange kind of calm to Block Delta 7. Word of Jason Cole's victory spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of the prison. Inmates who had once whispered about him now spoke openly, their voices filled with awe and respect. The survivor, as they called him, became a legend overnight. Even the guards treated him differently, giving him a wide berth and avoiding unnecessary confrontations. It was clear that no one wanted to test the limits of his patience or his strength. Varnock, however, couldn't escape the humiliation. His injuries healed slowly, but his pride took far longer. For days, he avoided eye contact with anyone, retreating into himself as whispers followed him wherever he went. The other inmates mocked him behind his back, calling him the loser instead of the leader. His alliance with Zerk, Rax, and the others dissolved almost immediately. None of them wanted to be associated with failure. Varnock knew he had only one choice: to face Jason again. Late one evening, after the daily headcount, Varnock approached Jason in the common area. The room was mostly empty, save for a few inmates scattered across the tables. Jason sat alone, reading a book Olivia had loaned him. When Varnock stepped into view, Jason glanced up briefly before returning his attention to the page. "What do you want?" Jason asked without looking up. Varnock hesitated, his antennae twitching nervously. He hadn't expected this calm reaction. I came to apologize," he said finally, his voice low and gruff. Jason lowered the book just enough to meet Varnock's gaze. "Apologize?" "Yes," Varnock admitted, his glowing markings dimming slightly. "You were right. I underestimated you. I thought you were weak because you're human. But you're not. You're stronger than any of us." Jason studied him for a moment, searching for signs of deception. Finding none, he nodded slowly. Okay. Apology accepted. Varnock blinked in surprise. Just like that. Just like that, Jason replied, closing the book. But let me make one thing clear. If you ever try something like that again, I won't stop until you're out of commission. Permanently. I understand, Varnock said quickly, taking a step back. You have my word. No more trouble from me. With that, Varnock turned and walked away, leaving Jason alone once more. As he retreated, several nearby inmates exchanged glances, stunned by what they'd witnessed. Never before had they seen Varnock back down so completely, or show such obvious respect for another prisoner. Olivia Hayes heard about the encounter later that night during her rounds, when she found Jason sitting in the medical bay waiting area. Pretending to inspect a bandage on his hand, she raised an eyebrow. So, I hear Varnock came to see you. He did, Jason confirmed, glancing at her. He apologized. And you believed him. Jason shrugged. Doesn't matter if I believe him. What matters is he knows better now. Olivia smiled faintly. You've got a way of making people think twice, don't you? It's not about making them think, Jason said simply. It's about showing them there's no point in trying. Their conversation was interrupted by the distant hum of machinery, followed by a series of sharp alarms. Lights flashed red throughout the block, signaling an emergency. Guards rushed past, barking orders into their communicators. Panic rippled through the inmates as rumors began to circulate. A containment breach, escaped creatures, or worse. Jason stood, his expression shifting from calm to alert. Something's wrong, he muttered. Olivia nodded, her professional demeanor slipping slightly. Stay safe, Jason. Whatever's happening, it's not good. As chaos erupted around them, Jason moved toward the source of the disturbance, a restricted section of the prison where dangerous experiments were rumored to take place. He didn't know what awaited him there, but one thing was certain. Survival meant staying ahead of the danger, and in Black Spire Penitentiary, danger always found a way to come knocking. The alarms blared louder as Jason made his way through the dimly lit corridors of Black Spire Penitentiary. Red emergency lights cast eerie shadows on the walls, and the air grew thick with tension. Guards shouted orders over the din, while inmates huddled in their cells or pressed against the bars, trying to see what was happening. Chaos reigned, but Jason moved with purpose, his sharp eyes scanning every corner for signs of trouble. He reached the restricted section quickly, where heavy steel doors usually sealed off unauthorized access. To his surprise, one of the doors hung partially open, its locking mechanism fried from some kind of energy surge. Beyond it lay a narrow hallway lined with reinforced glass chambers, containment units designed to hold dangerous creatures brought in from across the galaxy. Most were empty, but a few still pulsed faintly with glowing blue light, indicating active life forms inside. As Jason approached cautiously, he noticed movement within one of the chambers. A large wolf-like creature paced back and forth, its fur bristling and fangs bared. Its glowing red eyes locked onto him, and it let out a low growl that vibrated through the glass. Something was wrong here. The containment field flickered, unstable and weak. If it failed completely, the creature would be free. Before Jason could act, another sound caught his attention, a soft click followed by the hiss of hydraulics. One of the nearby chambers slid open entirely, releasing a smaller but equally menacing alien insect with razor-sharp legs and twitching antennae. The creature scuttled forward, its movements quick and erratic. It sniffed the air, then turned toward Jason, its mandibles clicking hungrily. Jason backed away slowly, his mind racing. He needed a weapon, something to defend himself. Spotting a fallen guard nearby, he grabbed the stun baton clipped to the man's belt. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. As the insect lunged at him, Jason swung the baton hard, striking it squarely in its segmented body. Sparks flew as the creature recoiled, stunned but not defeated. It charged again, forcing Jason to dodge and strike repeatedly until it finally collapsed, twitching feebly on the ground. Breathing heavily, Jason turned his attention back to the larger predator in the chamber. Its containment field was failing faster now, crackling with each pulse of energy. He didn't have much time. Thinking quickly, he searched the area for anything useful. Nearby, he found a control panel mounted on the wall, its screen flashing warnings about system malfunctions. Using his limited knowledge of engineering, he began pressing buttons, hoping to stabilize the field. "Need a hand?" came a voice behind him. Jason glanced over his shoulder to see Varnock standing there, holding a makeshift spear fashioned from a broken pipe. His expression was grim but determined. "I thought you weren't getting involved anymore," Jason said, not slowing his efforts. "This isn't about pride," Varnock replied. "If that thing gets loose, we're all dead." Together, they worked to stabilize the containment field. Varnock kept watch, ready to fend off any other escaped creatures, while Jason focused on the controls. After several tense moments, the field stabilized, sealing the wolf-like beast back inside its chamber. The red warning lights dimmed slightly, signaling a partial restoration of power. But the crisis wasn't over yet. Through the commotion, Jason heard distant shouts and the unmistakable sound of gunfire echoing deeper into the prison. Someone, or something, was causing deliberate sabotage. Whoever was behind this wanted chaos, and they weren't done yet. "We need to find the source," Jason said, turning to Varnock. "If we don't stop it, this place will fall apart." Varnock nodded, gripping his spear tightly. "Lead the way, Earthborn. For once, I trust your instincts." Side by side, the unlikely pair moved further into the heart of the prison, ready to face whatever awaited them. Survival depended on stopping the saboteur, and neither of them planned to die today. Jason and Varnock moved quickly through the labyrinthine corridors of Blackspire Penitentiary, their footsteps echoing against the metallic walls. The alarms continued to wail, but the chaos had shifted. Guards were now scattered, focusing on containing escaped creatures rather than maintaining order. Inmates roamed freely in some areas, adding to the disorder. Amid the confusion, Jason's sharp instincts guided them toward the source of the sabotage. They reached a maintenance junction where thick cables snaked along the floor, sparking erratically from severed connections. A trail of scorch marks led deeper into the restricted zone, hinting at deliberate damage. As they followed the path, Jason spotted a figure crouched near a control panel, tampering with the system. It was one of the human guards, a wiry man with shifty eyes and a nervous twitch. "What are you doing?" Jason demanded, stepping forward. The guard froze, then turned slowly, revealing a device strapped to his wrist, a remote trigger connected to the prison systems. "Stay back," he warned, his voice trembling. "I'll blow this whole place if I have to." Varnock growled low in his throat, raising his spear threateningly. "You're making a mistake." "No," the guard snapped, backing away. "You don't understand. I'm not doing this for myself. I'm working for someone who pays better than this dump ever could." Jason narrowed his eyes. "Who sent you?" "It doesn't matter," the guard spat. "By the time anyone figures it out, we'll all be dead anyway." He pressed a button on the device, causing another wave of energy surges throughout the facility. Lights flickered violently, and distant screams confirmed more containment breaches. Jason knew they couldn't let him escape. Moving carefully, he gestured for Varnock to flank the guard while he kept the man distracted. "Think about what you're doing," Jason said calmly. "Even if you get out of here, you won't live long once your bosses realize they don't need you anymore." The guard hesitated, doubt flickering across his face. That momentary pause was all Varnock needed. With surprising speed, he lunged forward, knocking the device from the guard's hand. It clattered to the ground, skittering just out of reach. Before the guard could react, Jason